A little bit about the two panels we have. This is one. There's another one tomorrow called Authoritarian Intelligence. So each year it's a little bit of a dilemma of how and on what level do we critique this emerging technology. Artificial technology in general is just, it has become an umbrella term for so many things, and it, to the knowledgeable, you would know we are in like cycle after cycle after cycle of technologies being called artificial intelligence in computer science, academic conferences. They would not use this term, which has been invented as an academic marketing term in 1956. So there's a whole history of AI. And we are, as curators and programmers of festivals, as artists and creatives, as industry professionals, as students coming up into the industry, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say panic, there's a little bit of a panic growing in the field. And we do want to address that, and we do want to address some of the potential that is included with those new technologies. As always, there are both potential and risk. A little bit about the last year. So it's been an industrious year for artificial intelligence in media. There's been experimentation, adoption, adaptation, apprehension, boycott, and, as I said, panic. Just in the past year, I'll remind all of us that we've seen the rise of Italian brain rot. That was 2025. We saw the alleged promise for a new Hollywood, I think 2 months or 3 months ago. Roairi Robinson, who's a renowned filmmaker, Irish-born, living in LA. He plays around a lot with AI, or media AI, and he was the one to release Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise fighting with each other, a 15-second, very realistic looking snippet of a movie. And we saw the backlash from professionals, from activists, from artists. And some of that was the all-organic, fully human music album by singer-songwriter Rosalia. And there's this Quebec band, which I really wanted to maybe share a clip of, but I got here late. What's the name of the band from Quebec? Engin de Poitin? Yes, if you have not heard anything by them, from my music friend nerds, I hear it's nothing new. It's atonal music, but it's very much like nothing, apologies for my phone, that AI would slap at us as music. So I think that's where they were going. Or at least it's very hard to understand because they interview in an alien language. And we've also seen a recalibration because and one of those is OpenAI. 2 years ago, here at this conference, we presented the first very exciting videos from Sora, OpenAI's video AI app. OpenAI closed Sora, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, to focus on more lucrative channels of production. This was a big thing, as is all things in AI. OpenAI had a $1 billion deal with Disney for our childhood memories to be incorporated with Sora. So that deal is off. And it seems like a crucial year for AI. Within creative circles and in general. Is the balloon going to continually ascend up and to the right, or will it pop? Now, possibly we're not on the verge of understanding. We're on the verge of understanding that this is a new tool, a new artistic outlet, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not the end of all. Maybe it's not the end of humankind. Photography did not make painters obsolete. It created a new art form and transformed an existing one. Yes, it rattled the source of income for some, made some professionals reconsider their careers probably, and made new careers along the way. But it also made the demarcation line between reality and imagination, between documentation and art, between fact and fiction, murkier, and laid the groundwork for the ability to manipulate and control that line. So what's happening, what's going on, what's to come, a conversation about the year we just had, and the year to come, I'd like to invite on stage Dr. Elad Yaron, Dr. Anya Dietrich, and Geraldine de Bastion to join me. Dr. Yaron, Elad is a researcher, curator, artist working at the intersection of contemporary and modern and cultural sociology. His engagement with artificial intelligence addresses some of its emerging implications for artistic practice. In recent years, his research has also examined the relationship between art and financial systems. I think he's in the right city for that. He's also chair of Israel's Curators Union. Elad we have several perspectives on this topic. Elad will bring art history, will bring curation and sociology perspectives to the panel. Dr. Anya Dietrich, her second, well, I don't know, maybe you've been here before, but I know of it being the second AI panel for you on at Lichter. Staff scientist at COBIC, which is a shortening of?
A Cooperative Brain Imaging Center.
I should have said Cooperative Brain Imaging Center. That sounds more impressive. At the Goethe Institute University in Frankfurt, Dietrich studies neural dynamics of emotion, cognition, and resilience. We all need some resilience. Focusing on neural fingerprinting and electrophysiological biomarkers. Did I say that right? Using EEG, MEG, and fMRI. Her expertise is in experimental research, analysis of neural data, and methodological training. She's active in interdisciplinary collaborations, science communication and outreach, participating in curatorial and programming work for science and arts exhibits, cultural and creative projects such as this one. So Anya will bring some neuroscience and also some science communication to our team. And Geraldine de Bastion, also second time at Lichter, and a good friend of mine. Political scientist, nonprofit and activist, organizer, strategy advisor, as well as moderator and speaker. She could have, you should be here.
I did the last one.
Okay. She has over 2 decades of expertise in digital transformation, sustainability, and innovation. She's co-founder of GIG, the Global Innovation Gathering, a network of grassroots innovators, social entrepreneurs, founders, and managers of maker spaces and hacker spaces all over the world. Geraldine has worked on digital politics and policy in Germany, in the EU, and globally, and also has specific expertise from the past few years with AI and the creative media industries, and also has personal relationship with the creative media industries.
That sounds so ominous and shady.
Her sister is a singer-songwriter.
That's not shady at all. You should all check her out.
And Geraldine is also a fantastic karaoke singer.
Stop it.
And she'll bring some viewpoints and perspectives on policy. Now, there are 2 layers to the topic at hand. The socio-economic, political, policy, activist, day-to-day layer, and the more philosophical discourse. The question of job loss and the effect it has on people's lives and households and communities and GDP. But also the question of what is a job? And should we have jobs anyway? And was Marx right all along? And the thing is that those 2 layers aren't very layered. They are more of a mush. They are very much interconnected in this conversation, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes as a means of obfuscation, I would have to say. So we'll try not to do, we'll try to tackle some of this and some of that, and try as best we can not to obfuscate anyone. And I'm sure we will reach not just agreement, but solutions at the next hour, hour and a half, especially with your help here. Let's start with some questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
They were sent an email. So let's start with a one for all. Whoever wants to pick it first. AI media, AI art is. Please complete the sentence.
I think a lot of people are looking at me as I'm coming from art history and art sociology. Only in its beginning, first of all, because, well, I guess even though all of art history was shoved into large learning machines, AI does not do a great job in creating art right now. It can imitate art, and a lot of times even imitate very successfully creative ideas, and even be creative in a sense. But I think because art is not such a defined subject as it is a history of a lot of thoughts we've smashed together as a field. The AI is having a lot of trouble to understand what is the art world and how could it intervene within it. That being said, it's a great tool sometimes, and I will elaborate on it later on probably. It is a great tool while being used by artists. A lot of artists who don't have access to Hollywood studios can start produce Hollywood quality scenes, for example.
I think there will be a lot of people here to argue against that statement, but please.
Me as well, but later on.
And I also urge you to tell me, Uri, that's not the question at all. The question should be, but please.
I would agree. I would largely agree. I think, as always, this is a matter of definition, and there are different perspectives on this, and a lot of debate still to be had. But the core question of, is a large language model creative? Is the product produced through a prompt a piece of art or a creative work? And in my personal definition, I would say no, it is a product for sure. And there is a perhaps creative part of the process that happens in the interaction between the technology and the human. And those are discussions to be had and definitions to be made. But as I said, in my perspective, the technical process that happens after a prompt is given into the system and the product that is spat out as a result of that is not a creative process. And therefore I would agree with Elad that the question how artists can employ or creatives can employ AI as a part of their working process is a very interesting one, and one where AI can feature in different ways. A lot of also maybe non-end result producing ways. Yeah, of course, many artists engage in long processes of research before they engage in a topic matter and actually produce something. And AI can be a powerful tool in those research processes. It can be a partner in dialogue, perhaps, in a process of creation. And there are, of course, cool experiments with self-determined AI, which is something we'll dive maybe a little bit more into rather than off-the-shelf products, and a lot of cool ways to explore that in a wide open field. But if we're talking about generative AI and the products that we're seeing now, I would have been agreeing with Elad.
We're already on the philosophical aspects of what is art, and also the different the demarcation line between art and craft, and a chair and a chair. When does a chair become a piece of art, and so forth? Anya,
So
AI art is in your
AI art is a tool for the brain to express something that is going on inside of the brain. I mean, science is an ongoing debate, so also like the definition of creativity and how you research that changes. But for example, one hypothesis is basically that creativity is a combination of things. Could be thoughts, concepts, creating something new, and it's an active process that your brain does, but not being active. Usually, like you know it yourself, the best thoughts usually you have when you're under the shower or like when you're not focusing on anything specific. And if you want, I can explain a little bit more about how that works in the brain. But I want to make the claim that basically one hypothesis is that in this state, when you are free roaming your thoughts, you reconsolidate some experiences you had in your life and you change them, and then you can recombine them. So, and that aspect basically is something that the AI cannot do, right? Like the outcome the AI can reproduce, but not this process of reliving, reshaping, reviewing moments of your life through your current experience. At least not that I'm aware of.
I'll pick one word. It's a word you've not said, but said in a way. Robots, not AI, supposedly, according to it's their original intent or their robots are very more easily defined than AI. They're meant to replace humans in tasks that are dangerous, dull, or difficult. Now, there's a number of ways to classify this, the 3 or 4 Ds, 3 or 4 Bs. Dull and boring is or monotonous are 3 of the things that are that robots are supposed to release us from. What is a life without boredom? And how is boredom connected to creativity? And then I'll open this up to all of you to explain exactly what is creativity. But let's start, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would say a life without boredom is really terrible, especially for the brain, because the brain needs periods of time where you don't do any task, because then you have other networks in your brain active than when you really focus on a task. For example, the default mode network, I guess some of you might have heard that. That's a network that is active and switches with other networks when you don't do anything. And during that time, you are able to associate things with other things that were not associated before. And then basically it can switch to another network that then is able to decide, okay, this is a good thought, this has potential, I can go with that. And then it feels rewarding for you, right? If you create or if you talk to an artist, for them it's basically a need, it's a drive to do it. It's not necessarily a job or like something that you just have to finish. So I think it's really important to have boredom and have the ability to let your brain do creative things.
So you've already touched on it. I'd like an art or curation or art history sociology definition, and maybe a neuroscience. And can creativity even be captured by definition through policy? So what is creativity?
I will start with the bigger questions and try to give really, really simple answers that we can try and rely on. So first of all, today in the arts, the question is not, is it art? Everything can be art, as Marcel Duchamp or whoever told us. And for kids, it's very easy to say, imagine it would be in a museum. Now try to think about it. And then the next question is not, is it art? Okay, it is art, but why is it interesting? Why should I talk about it as if it's a part of art history? And I want to say something, I'm not sure everybody are going to agree with me, but I think AI might be creative. A lot of times, in a lot of sense, it's doing what all of us are doing by having a lot of different ideas and connecting them and bringing something new to the table. But AI is doing a terrible job in explaining why is it really interesting to human beings right now what he is saying. He is blubbering and trying to create some, I don't know, whoever written a text with AI, it sounds really reasonable when you read it, but then when you are trying to understand why is it interesting, well, a lot of times it's not. It just sounds as if it is an interesting thing. So maybe AI is rather okay with creativity, and a lot of times you can play with it and find really creative ideas, but the AI wouldn't know it is creative or is it interesting?
It's a little bit of a quantum question. Is it interesting depends on there being someone asking, is it interesting? Yes, please.
I find your thought really interesting, and I want to comment on that because I think that humans are also very often not aware why they're doing the art, and that they are also not good in explaining because a lot of subconscious processes are going on, and maybe, I don't know, you have a feeling you want to create something and afterwards you create a story. So similar to the AI, maybe a little bit more sophisticated, but yeah, just to comment on that.
Yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit about creative process and maybe more in the genres I'm familiar with, like music and pottery. But I think obviously creative process is a very individual experience, and there are very many different ways about going around to create a piece of art or creative product of some sort. And that's why I think there are different nuances to this conversation. I watched a little clip yesterday on TikTok of Taylor Swift giving an interview about her songwriting and how songs come to her and how sometimes creative processes can be very serendipitous. They can be associative, they can be sort of this moment when something sort of, she described as a cloud floating in front of you that appears from thin air and you just have to grab it. And I really know that explanation of how songs kind of come to you from my father and from my sister as well. And of course, there are other processes where you're facing the blank page, or you're approaching things in a bit more of a technical manner. And part of a creative process, I think, are three things. This is kind of spontaneous, so there's possibly more. I think there's talent. You have to be able to harness, this cloud that appears in front of you and see something in it and have that vision. There's skill, then to translate that into something. And there's perhaps opportunity, something that creates this serendipity in the first place, or also the context that we move in as people, to be able to say whether then we have the ability to create something, the economic ability, the whatever. And I think this notion that AI can democratize art because it creates access for everyone and levels the playing field in regard to talent and skill is an extremely dangerous notion, and something that is not constructive for our future societies. I think it is very arguable about creating a level playing field when it comes to opportunity. But then we could also ask ourselves, is that just a very short-lived offer from big tech? And are we actually really creating opportunities away from people rather than giving to it? Yeah.
I do want you to address the creativity question from a policy perspective, but I'll take what you just gave me and ask the art sociologist, no, but also of the people on stage, you're the closest to being art historian. I've used the photography metaphor, analogy, before photography to painting. Can you remind us what I meant or expand on it? And could you maybe elaborate whether you see it as an apt metaphor, or is it completely irrelevant?
So what you talked about before is a lot, the main historian who thought about it is
we talked about portraits, if I remember before.
The main historian who dealt with it is Gombrich, and he was talking about something named mimesis. He said all of art history tried to create something that would look like reality. All of the paintings, he did it like, it's not really true, but as if throughout history people achieved more and more tools to create something that looks like reality. Yes. And then one day somebody came with a photo camera, sort of like, and art lost its purpose, in a sense, because people now knew how to let you sit for 4 hours or 4 days or 4 weeks and paint a really beautiful portrait of you, but another person could come and just take a picture. Well, it's not so at the beginning, but everybody understood what is going to happen.
To remind us on the decades of when that happened, around about.
Let's say at the end of the 19th century. And since then, art regained a new purpose, which is, in a sense, today what I talked about earlier, which is what is interesting. I don't want to recreate the mimetic illusion anymore. I want to show you something new, to interest you, to make you explore new ideas. And the question is, are we having the same revolution once again? I would disagree, but I would wait until we'll go to the politic side of the question, which you started talking about as well.
As a reminder, I wanted to capture creativity. I wanted to understand that word, and because it's imperative for all of us to understand what we're talking about, and there are different definitions. It's not as simple as defining a table, which is extremely difficult, by the way, as some of you may have studied philosophy know. But creativity does have a room when it comes to policy making. you utilize your creative work, and then you have rights over them, you have copyright and all of that. Had policy been able to capture creativity, or to capture the definition of creativity? And you're welcome all. I see actually. Yeah.
I didn't raise my hand
Okay.
or anything.
Do you have a good?
I'm not sure if I fully get the question, because I feel that there's a lot of questions in there, so forgive me, but like, because obviously we can talk about copyright and licensing, and I'm sure all people in the audience are familiar with the conflict of interest of AI being trained on artist data without people's consent, and the effects that that's having. I think last year at Lichter we were discussing, of course, the writer's strike in the US, and how there's a pushback of artists to kind of reclaim the data that their AI has been fed with, or protect themselves for future things. I think we also discussed the example of Scarlett Johansson suing OpenAI because they used her voice, because of Sam Altman's favorite movie being her, and all of these like sort of more anecdotal connections perhaps between the industries. So there is that ongoing tension and debate, and of course historically artists have been on the rather losing or receiving end of the spectrum. There's a big discussion, for instance, in music, whether if there should be like sort of pre or post cutoff point. Do artists just get paid out a lump sum because they've already been ripped off with their music rights, and now AI creates music for you? And we see this rise of AI bans. Or like, I don't know, my collection of stupid headlines about AI has overflown too much, so I had to like break it off. But there's so much of that
You're talking
going
about
on.
ghost music.
If you want to call it that, yeah, I think so. There's a great book by Cory Doctorow called Choke Point Capitalism, which explains some of the industry dynamics and the lock-in points created by different platforms around different artistic products, and some of the policies that could have been made to prevent those, or could still be made in future to go against those. If anybody's in more detail. And then, of course, we could be talking about how the AI Act looks at AI and creativity. So point me a little bit in which direction you want me to go.
The AI Act, and is it enough, or what does it enable and what does it not enable?
Yeah, I'd love somebody to come and challenge me on this, because I'm not sure if I'm the right AI expert to really talk about this in a lot of nuance. But so the EU AI Act is a piece of legislation that looks at AI and the different risks level of society brought about by different technologies. So for instance, if you're creating AI in a field where there's a high risk for humans, like weapons, medicine, things, you have a different process of how you need to get an okay for that, rather than if you're creating AIs for creating slop videos. But there's, of course, now this AI Act is in the process of being implemented in the different EU countries, but of course this is a very fast-paced moving field, so it's good to reflect on the question, is this legislation enough, or do we want to go further? And recently I was in another policy discussion forum around creative industries and in policies for those in Europe, and kind of just brought up the point, if AI applications, like you mentioned Sora, are undermining human creativity and so rapidly putting people out of work, should the risk level for those not be ranked higher in view of the AI classification of the AI Act than how they are ranked now, which is a low risk perspective on these kind of applications? But yeah, I think there could be very well a debate around whether those should not be high-risk applications, because this is a very important part of humanity and society, and we want to retain autonomy and human creativity and not have markets being sort of swept up by AI products and AI embedded applications where the user cannot choose anymore whether they are actually using them in their production process or not.
So actually a follow-up on that, and so who's determining who is defining the fields of AI and their risk level? EU politicians, I assume, and lobby groups that lobby EU politicians. And they would define media as a low risk relative to killer drones.
Yeah.
What about our shared reality? The fact that AI can be utilized in all media that we consume, whether texts, images, and videos, little snippets of what we now call reality that we view on our different screens, and completely disassociate us from reality. Is that not a big risk?
Yeah, but I think that's an adjacent debate. Like, obviously, you know, we could also be discussing like phase news and disinformation and how AI powers that. We had a very interesting example around circumvention of regulations around that last year here at Lichte, when we were having an AI prompting battle between 3 different AI video artists who you invited, who I think about a lot, and I'm thinking about now in this discussion as well. We can get back to those in a minute as well. But the question came up, I think somebody asked to prompt a video with Putin and Trump dancing on the Kremlin Square, and one of the artists explained, if you put in the names of people, the app will say, no, we cannot do that. But if you add pictures of the 2 of them and say, take these images and recreate these men dancing, it was just the simplest sort of hack around that regulation. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question for you, Geraldine?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you were saying that this politics actually raising the question, how far do we want to go? Do we want to continue? And so I wonder if it's actually possible to stop, even though we would decide now to stop, to not go further with AI. Would that be stoppable?
I don't think we want to stop generally going further with AI, and I mean, obviously, technologies can also be banned, but I think that's very far away from the reality that we are at now. And there are, of course, so many great applications of AI as well that maybe wouldn't be sort of serving the end purpose. But I do feel that we sometimes limit ourselves in the way that we allow thinking about really taking a seat back from certain technologies or the ways that we use them. I was at an event 2 weeks ago in Berlin called Cables of Resistance, which was a very activistic event where it was also very international, which was really nice, but a lot of students as well, basically sort of asking the question, what can we do against big tech, and where can there be like a real pushback, and sort of questioning some of the limits that have been set in the last years on the question of, on thinking about degrowth, thinking about actually not using technologies for certain things. And we haven't had more radical debates like that for quite some time, I feel, because of the power also that technology in general, but also big tech have over our lives and economies, and of course the lobby interests that they pursue when they have a seat at the table at these negotiations as well. But I think there are some questions in there that we do need to ask ourselves. I'm a fan of technology in general and technological innovation, but in light also of some of the ecological effects and effects on our democratic systems, as you said, I do think there are valid questions in there.
I will be getting back to creativity, and I'll take something. This is for you to prepare for the next question, because you mentioned the creative process is something very individual. I think people in film media and other forms of art, creativity, there are different forms of creativity. Some of them are very collaborative. And I'd like to ask Anya about that. But prior to that, so think about that, about how creative people collaborate and what is that. I have a policy question for the curator and art sociologist. Let's start. What's the demarcation line? Where is the demarcation line between a paintbrush and Photoshop? And And my question would be, do the tools themselves have a political leniency in their output? Or is it all about how they're used? And I'll just remind everybody, a knife can be used in the kitchen and can be used in the kitchen for murder. And so can, how is it at the parlor game? Not the parlor game, a lamp, General Mustard. Yeah, with did it in the living room with a lamp, right? There's a lamp, candlestick. There you go. So what is a tool and all of that, but our brushes, our paintbrushes, or is a piece of marble inherently political?
Okay, so actually, it's a big question, but it's actually stepping right into the thesis I'm working on today about AI. And it starts with this article by Longden Winner, who asked, do artifacts have politics? And as far as I thought about it, about AI and about these large algorithms, I think the answer which surprised me is, first of all, yes. And the second answer is, but it's not liberal politics, as if they are trying to convince us it's conservative politics. There are a lot of layers to that, in a sense, but some obvious things. You take a machine and you shove huge corpuses of historical corpuses, yeah, and data, but all the old books, for example, shove them into it. And then I remember when they just released DALL-E 2, one of the first engines to create pictures.
OpenAI's first image generating model, yes.
Probably second, because it's two.
Yeah.
But
no, it was because,
yeah. But I was playing with it, and if you told it to produce a picture of a doctor, it would always be a man at the beginning. And then I said, somebody said, okay, but you know, most doctors are men. So I went and checked. In the United States today, most doctors are women. So it's not true. So of course he's not thinking about it. What he's thinking about is all of these Shutterstock images of doctors he saw, which are actors impersonating, male actors impersonating a man. So later on...
This is, just to expand and explain, you're talking about the training data that was put into the language models and included probably many doctors' photos, but also quite a lot of people dressed as doctors through Shutterstock and other image sources. And so the social construct of what a doctor should be embedded into the training data.
Exactly, but it goes much wider than that. It's everywhere today. There is an optimization layer upon this programmed or self-learned algorithm, which not in all tools, but in many of them tries to act as if it is very liberal. And you know, it is a painting, and it will never help you fold your laundry, but it will paint and sing songs and create new ideas, and not give you free time to do so. But then when you look at the outcomes, and it's everywhere right now. I took a photo of an exhibition I curated. The light was dimmed in purpose.
This is an exhibition you curated?
I curated it, and I took a photo of it. Although the walls were yellow, my iPhone immediately made them white because they should be white. And so even...
And this is your choice?
I chose, I wanted them to be yellow, but I could not take a picture of these yellow walls because algorithms would immediately change the picture. And now, in the highest degree, when people in Hollywood want to greenlight a movie, want to get big sums of money, sometimes tens or even hundreds of millions to produce their movie, there are AI algorithms who studied movie history, in a sense, and they would help you choose, should you spend this money on this new movie? But then they are trained on the past, not the future. I don't know why. But when they are trained on that, they would tell you, you know something, I don't think such a movie will work because it never had worked. And suddenly it's amazingly conservative.
And this is the world that we are living in and heading toward, right? Very much so. And there is a political agenda that is sort of taking place and built in. And we've done a lot of work like on futures and future methodologies and da-da-da. But there was always this sort of no-brainer wisdom in that sort of seems to have been sort of shoved under the rug a little bit. You can never produce the future through big data. It's always a projection of the past because that's what you have. You have data that is data from the past fed into a system. So how can it design the future in a sort of free-thinking, creative way that we would like to sort of think humans can if it's always a perpetuation of the past? Yeah. And that's why this question is, like, can AI systems ever create something new or something that's truly innovative? Are they not really what they're good at, which is pattern recognition and understanding connections between large data sets that perhaps humans are less good at doing because that is not how our brains are designed or work and what we're sort of skilled and set out to do. And is there not the magic in the correlation of what human brains and AIs could be doing between that? Maybe a question for
Anya,
you.
aren't people just pattern recognition systems supported by biology? Like,
I mean, you could say so, I guess, but as I mentioned before, you have this internal aspect, like you construct your own reality, and that changes through your new experiences. So, I don't know, let's find an example. Let's say you were like, I don't know, super untidy as a teenager, and you always, I don't know, your parents always said, clean up your room, and you never did. And you think like, it was just not disciplined enough or whatever. And then 20 years later, you get an ADHD diagnosis. Then you would like see the past differently, right? You would reevaluate the past. It's not just a static memory. It changes with your perspective from now. But I want to comment on something that both of you basically said, or also you, Uri, which is that the AI is, and I find it so interesting, because you want to take the picture. The wall is literally yellow, like physically yellow. On the picture, it's white, but you know it. But imagine if you grow up in this world where you have deep fakes and, I don't know, manipulated pictures, and you're in the development, you're a child or a teenager, and you have to learn how the world functions and how it is. Then you're basically constantly gaslighted. Like, you cannot rely on your senses. And I'm super curious what will happen to this generation.
I want to say, was there ever a photograph that took a real photo?
No. Of course, every tool have politics within it. And I thought about what you said earlier, like, can we stop it? You asked about AI, can we stop it? And I thought about this movie, and afterward, a lot of research done by two people, The Social Dilemma, made by Isa Raskin and Tristan Harris, about Facebook. And they started dealing with Facebook years ago and showing how we are, again, in a sense, gaslighted to think about it in one way, connecting people all over the world. And in a lot of senses, it made people fight once against the other to gain traction. And today, they are working in the Center for Human Technology exactly on those things, on how could we regulate these things. And it took them maybe too long to do so and to convince people that Facebook is problematic, but in the Congress in the United States, they are legislating against such things right now and trying to intervene. The question is, can we regulate it? I think we must, because as you get more and more gaslighted about reality, you know, politics change around you, and those, the tech bros, the big companies, they have specific things in mind they would prefer would happen, and a lot of times they don't involve us. Well, at least not if you don't think about some feudal future where we are, you know, they're peasants.
I'd like to stress you, to challenge you on a question. I've asked this before. I want to get maybe a different answer or a deeper answer, or because we're speaking about different types of art and art mechanisms, and whether it's a video camera or a photography camera or a paintbrush, and then we move immediately to AI, which is a very, very loosely defined umbrella term. I'll do the ad absurdum of a paintbrush used, an AI-infused paintbrush that is used by an artist these days, and the artist wants to paint Donald Trump but cannot. And then he wants to paint genitalia, but the brush does not allow him or her to paint genitalia. And the next following thing would be, of course, to hack the brain of the artist himself or herself, and completely eliminate those.
It's much more simple than that. It's Marshall McLuhan. It's the medium is the message.
Okay.
It's the way how television chose which leaders would lead us because they looked better. And when
They're
we
from
moved from radio
casting.
to television, yeah.
But did the brush originally, when did the brush become political? Since its first use?
I'll just answer it quickly, briefly, and say that a lot of times we are trying to talk about the brush, but culture is everywhere. Culture is all around us, and to ask, is television a political tool? Yes, of course. Are the signs all around us are political? Yes, of course. So the brush, maybe nobody really changed reality with the brush. I doubt it, but it's an inner circle talking about that of art historians.
I think Geraldine has a question.
Something to this. I think the question is, the first question, can you make that brush? Do you have access to materials? Can you make that brush? Who has access to that brush? Who gets to decide who has a brush and who does not have a brush? Yeah. And the moment you cannot make the brush or have the exact same opportunity as everybody else to get a brush, then the brush becomes political.
And who can hack the brush and who cannot?
Well, I think that's another. That's the next. I'm not talking about that yet. So, yeah, and again, this is a question of agency, and this is a question of access, and this is a question of fairness. And this is why we need to be able to ask these questions about what role do we want to give these tools and these technologies in our society, and especially if we are all dependent on using tools that are owned by very few, very rich men that want to exercise a lot of authoritarian control on our society, and then the brush is definitely political.
I think we're making headway. There are some women who are billionaires now. You've made me think.
Taylor Swift.
Thinking about what you all just said, and thinking about the portraits hanging in museums. Who are the portraits of? Most probably nobility, right? And it's interesting for us from a historical perspective, but also from a craft perspective, because famous painters painted famous people as a job, and then they were able to do as a side hustle. They were ingratiated by that family or that by noble or king or queen, and then we were able to do their side gig as a thing. You want to add something?
No, yeah, but they're all just very tangential aspects, because that's what we get to see now. That's was delivered historically. Of course, doesn't mean that art doesn't happen in many other places and ways that are maybe not as well documented and kept, right? And yeah, and now it's a question of like, will any of that be kept for future societies, or will it all be undermined and corrupted, like, you know, what is fake and what is real anymore if we look back? So there's so many conversations that are to be had around this, really. Yeah, I want to, before I don't know, I want to open it at some point. I've been just keeping a pet reflection from the previous panel, which I moderated for this panel. Let me know when I can share it.
There will be a Q&A session, and you can raise a question as well.
No, I want to bring in an aspect to this discussion from the panel before.
Come on, do it.
So,
Yes,
because
why
we've been
are you
talking a
asking for
lot
permission?
but because it's just taking it to another adjacent
I'll
thought. So, in the previous panel, we reflected on the role that digital platforms are playing in the expression of artists, self-expression, and cultural journalism. And we talked a little bit about the fact that there are, of course, many artists using digital media to show their art, but showing the art is often not enough, because that's a boring content, right? If you just take a picture of I'm into pottery, of your vase, that's like what are you going to look at the vase, right? So you have to show the process. You have to create content around it. And often that's tutorials, it's letting people into your creative process and sort of creating this transparency that maybe wasn't there before in different artistic practices, if you want any visibility on social media. And when we were leaving that panel and just coming into this, I was like, okay, maybe there's another interesting tension in there, because whilst digital platforms are forcing artists to sort of become this PR machine and show everybody their creative process, the AI is doing the opposite, right? It's the black box that you will never be able to understand how it gets from A to B or how its process took place. And there's this sort of dichotomy in the way that art, products, as I was saying earlier, are produced by AI, and this black box effects, and the way that humans are being sort of forced to be more and more transparent and give insight, and probably even more AI learning from those processes in the meanwhile. So that's just my little reflection.
Fascinating.
But do you mean kind of that the magic is taken away by making the entire process too efficient, that you directly have the output of the art piece, let's say from an AI, and not like the entire process of making, thinking, failing, redoing, and so on?
Yeah, I mean that the AI will never be able to, for humans, show that. There's in the way that large language models work and the AI systems we have now, there is an intended black box effect where you cannot say input equals output like that, right? That's just how the systems work. So at the one hand, we sort of live with the black box effect of any sort of AI creative product created, but humans, on the other hand, who want any visibility on digital spheres, need to sort of give the insight to their process, need to show the handicraft behind the art pieces they produce if they want any traction on their channels. Wild theory.
You see that in TV shows showing behind the scenes. You see that in a lot of media products over the past decade or even more, of showing how the thing is made. You can see it in open kitchens, for instance, in restaurants, which are the complete opposite of fast food. Like the kitchen is open, you see how the dish is made. Sometimes the dish is made, or the bartender, mixologist makes the drink just in front of you. The process is part of the art. But an interesting neuroscience aspect of it, I guess, is that requires a collaboration, at least between the bartender and me. The bartender requires someone to order the drink and an audience. The film requires an audience. The poet requires a reader. In some ways, we are a title for an article that we have on Utopia is Death of the Author. Because we need the author now, again. The meaning of what the author wanted to say, the meaning of the musician and the director become essential. But that meaning itself is a black box. We don't know how it works. Do we?
I mean, we speculate as neuroscientists about how the brain works, but we don't really know either. Like, there are some ideas, basically, which I briefly talked about before, that like some networks are active and they're trying to connect, and then when you have the skill or you're trained on it, or like talent, you are able to see when an idea is good, when something is worth executing, or then fostering the creative process. And I mean, what is also shown, for example, is that when people listen to music together, the brain synchronizes, so the brain activity becomes more similar with other people. So you're literally on the same wavelength with them. They have the same like kind of experience, or more similar than usual.
We're coming to a close. I want you to expand on that a little bit, because I want to expand on the joint experience of art without an audience. I'm not going to ask about art without an audience, but I do want to ask about the cumulative and communal aspect of art and its behavioral neuroscience aspects, and also about collaborative creative work, because a lot of filmmaking is still a collaborative work. Please comment.
Yeah, I mean, those are themes that I think we also discussed here at Lichter last year. What happens, you said it earlier, like it can be a great tool for somebody who can't like access a big studio or has a production company behind them perhaps, but what happens when an art form that was previously a very collaborative process now takes place in isolation? And you can make a whole movie as a one-person show, which was a complete thing of impossibility before. And is there a difference between different forms of artistic practice? Like the painter might be used to sitting at home and just inhaling their own paint fumes and enjoying their own art, even if they don't have a gallery exhibition. But
at least enjoying the fumes.
Yeah, so this, and then I think one discussion that we've been having a lot over the last year was the discussion around friction that came out of also some of the conversations at Lichter as to how far do you need friction to be part of the creative process, and how is that undermined by AI, at least the generative tools that we have now, because they are all appeasement machines and friction is not part of the programming. They all want to tell you all the time, well, that is a great idea and can I do something else for you, but not, well, no, have you thought about this instead, you know?
You're leading us directly into authoritarian intelligence, the panel
Sorry,
tomorrow.
I would love to be there for
no,
that
that's
tomorrow
fantastic.
too.
So
But I
we're
think
going to discuss that.
That comes back to the question of what is the valuable thing, right? Because it's not always the piece itself. It's the process, it's the collaboration, the talking, the social aspects. It's maybe your own feeling of fulfillment, even though nobody ever will see this art piece. Maybe you just made it for yourself, right? So, and what you are describing sounds a little bit more like this, I don't know, like a product, right? Like the most efficient way to create an art piece, and then you have a product to say, I created art.
So I'll delve. This is from tomorrow. Before Facebook became Meta, there was another company called Meta. It died. Yes. Meta was an AR company, founded in 2012 and defunct by 2019, so Facebook could utilize the name. Meta presented AR glasses, and Meron Gebirtz was a hit at the 2016 TED Global event where he presented these AR glasses, and the tagline, the sales pitch for the Meta AR glasses was the neural path of least resistance. So you put on the glasses and you immediately
Become part of the herd.
you are in a utopia that of immediate gratification. You may see the world as you wish it would be. Maybe there will be no races, no religions, no nations too. But most probably, when you walk down the street, you would be reminded that you wanted to pick up those sneakers that are on sale just on your right. What does that evoke in you? The neural path of least resistance.
I mean, problematic for sure, because you habituate, right? If you only have like pleasant moments, you don't have any pleasant moment at all, basically. So you need at least some neutral moments or like some, I don't know, some challenge also to overcome to feel like satisfaction and so on. You cannot have that. But I also wonder when you say, how is it even possible to be shown an ideal world when the training data and everything is heavily biased, as we discussed before? Would that even be possible, or is it just like a recreation of the system?
One man's utopia is another man's dystopia. What is an ideal world? Do you want to comment on that?
I would want to use you for 1 minute as a straw person and say one thing you didn't say today, but you might have said, is that the problem with creative AI is that it don't have senses. In a sense, you said it yesterday in our little talk, and yeah, and well, there are a lot of sensors, but it does not use them as well, so it does not feel reality in the same way we do. But then again, I thought about it since yesterday, and there is one way these AI machines get sensible about reality, and it is via the huge companies they are belong to, because it costs a lot of money to train a new model. So the companies, and a lot of times the man at the head of the company, put a lot of things within this AI to change it toward what it wants it to be. For example, it tells him, or it ask questions at the end of your response, so people will engage more and more with it. And to take it to what we talked about throughout this whole talk and what you are talking about tomorrow, this is the authority. This is the authority of the AI in a lot of senses. They make this product in a very specific way.
They make a product.
Yes.
Let's start with that. One last question to all of you, and then we'll open it up to questions or comments. So we've talked a lot about creativity. There's one aspect of creativity that I think, and in art, and you're welcome to correct me. Van Gogh died, as we all know, poor and
Oh no.
what?
Oh no.
And would an AI piece? So, art is a community. Art is a human process. Art involves critique of art. Art is everything around the process of art itself. And the interesting thing about Marcel Duchamp and Van Gogh and Picasso and Pollock and Andy Warhol and Steven Spielberg and Hitchcock and maybe now Rosalia and Taylor Swift, fine, is I don't think Taylor Swift belongs in that list actually, but
Go on.
Wait,
Don't fall into that pit.
Because they have done all of these people have contributed or were part of a paradigm shift in their field of work, in their discipline. They did something unacceptable to the establishment. They did something. Hitchcock kills in Psycho kills the main character. Spoiler for Psycho. Kills the main character midway into the film. It was a completely insane thing to do. Just to give an example from film. Would an AI be? What's the relationship here? Wouldn't an AI be able to disrupt a paradigm?
But you're looking at AI as an entity. But this is something all of us have on our computers, so everybody can get a somewhat same result, you know. To do so, you will probably need a sociological system around it and someone or some system to utilize it in a specific way to do so.
So when there are enough AI agents around saying this slop, just that this AI
No, I think
agent
that's
did.
a wrong approach to the conversation. I want to agree with Elad and like maybe abbreviate it a little bit. AI is an infrastructure of power. These are physical infrastructures fed with our data, exercising power over our societies. And to personify and humanize and the way this way, I would object to that. Yeah, and maybe just yes, anthropomorphize. I would like to just bringing it back to creativity. This was a thought I had earlier. We often ask, okay, are we going to have general intelligence come by AI? And then the question we ask is, will AI then want to destroy humans? That's kind of like, is AI have this specific will to destroy humanity? We never ask, is AI, when it's not being prompted of us, thinking of the next beautiful piece of creation? Yeah, my dad used to say he has a symphony playing in his head. I used to say when he goes to sleep and he closes his eyes, there's a symphony playing in his head, and he can channel that into music if he wants. I don't think that any AI system is playing a symphony when nobody is prompting it.
It's not thinking of anything in the shower.
It doesn't shower.
Any other comments?
Yes, but do you think that also is because we train it completely wrong? We train it with data that then it wants to destroy humanity. Because we kind of project our own human destructive behavior on the AI.
I think that's a conversation for tomorrow's panel on
Probably,
authoritarianism.
yes.
And I just meant that it doesn't make sense for us to see it as this being, that is one day going to rule over it. It makes sense for us to see it as an infrastructure of power and, in most worrying times, control. Yeah.
It's both an F-35 and a garden, and the process of how it is made is political. And we'll talk about it next tomorrow. So let's start with some comments before questions. There are always comments or questions. Or you may have comments or questions.
Let's start with
please.
Colleague will come to you with a mic.
Just state your name. You're getting a microphone.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Elias. I have a comment and a question. First comment, thank you, Geraldine, for making this panel quite coherent and understandable. It was quite hard to follow at times. To ask a question also to Geraldine, because you kind of all agreed on the first thing that was said about the pictures. So when cameras and photos were introduced after making art and painting, you put it kind of into the same relation as AI doing the same thing right now, which I find quite difficult, because if we think about it, pictures are very different from paintings. And AI is very different in the sense that it's trying to imitate what we humans have been doing for multiple years. So if I tell the AI to make a picture like Picasso, it's going to try to make a picture look like Picasso. It's not trying to do something new that hasn't existed before, because we need to feed it with something. Would you disagree with that, or would you agree with making the assumption that pictures and paintings are basically the same thing like AI and art right now?
I think it was you who made that analogy, wasn't it? Between the photography and the portrait
Uri
painter that went
started
I
out.
it all.
made the analogy, and then I asked whether the analogy is apt, whether it is usable. Is the good use case?
I would
for-
say there's quite a fundamental difference between the invention of a camera and the technological revolution, as someone want to call it, or transformation that we're going through now. I think, just to add to what you said, that was a short answer to your question. Just to add to what you said, obviously the imitation is a really important part of creative processes, yeah? To look at other people's work, to get inspired by other people's work, or to look at nature and get inspired by it and imitate things that are going around in other creation processes, like in nature. This idea of, like, I think it was this Newton thing, like standing on the shoulders of giants, that that's how humanity works, right? We learn from, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there is something highly problematic in some of the other, click and produce and then call that a piece of art processes that we've discussed. Yeah.
I will maybe add something small, that if I would see AI creation as an analogy to photographs, I would think about it as, well, photographs is taking, light waves and putting them on paper. In a sense, AI is taking our shared knowledge, or, the way we imagine reality, in a sense, and trying to reproduce that thing, which is rather strange.
reproduce the already reproduced reality.
Yes and no, because then you think that the reality
I'm thinking about the
is not, or
doctors.
yes, what there is in our heads.
I'm thinking about the social construct of a doctor as
Yes.
represented by
Maybe
a Shutterstock
archetypes.
image of a doctor.
Maybe archetypes, for example, is one good way to think about it. There are a lot of archetypes in the world, and they are, a lot of people use them in their creation, and now AI can take these motifs and themes and try to produce them again and again. But it's not based on the physical reality.
I'll say something in defense of this analogy, though every metaphor is flawed. Painting has been around since 40, 50,000 years, or something like that.
Has been preserved for
Okay.
40.
So it's one of the oldest form of art we know of, and it has transformed and changed and through millennia and tens of thousands of years. And there's been a process of change and a process of perfecting the process itself, perfecting the tools we use. To a degree, the Romantic period, right, is painting wonderful vistas that completely replicate what you see in the world, supposedly. And then comes the photograph as a blow to that, as a systemic, paradigmatic blow to that entire field. We're again and again discussing AI. We're discussing LLMs, and may I remind everybody that LLMs is the second iteration within the past decade, because 5 years ago we would have been talking about GANs, GANs.
Adversarial networks.
Thank you. So it's already the second iteration of digital processes conveying art and utilized to make art. and there have been others before, and we don't even know and probably think LLMs are going to be succeeded by something else. Yes, sorry. Other comments or other
the questions?
questions? There's one over there.
Hi, my name is Paulina, and I have one question and one comment. So, don't you think like AI just killing creative thought process, because you can just type some words and say do whatever, and then you're lazy to turn your brain to create something? Like, of course, it depends on how people use it, but we're all lazy and always searching for easiest way to do stuff.
The neural path of least resistance.
I think it can be both. I think you're right. You can use it in a way that you don't train your own creative thinking, I don't know, inspiration, innovation processes, for sure, but it can also be a tool for your own brain to explore things that maybe would not have been possible for you. So I guess both.
Yeah, okay. And also, like you said, that people wants to see the process of creating, like in social media. But for example, like media is just full of AI right now, and even like my smaller sister making AI videos, and she gets a lot of views on TikTok, and people are started to be brainwashed by it, and traditional art is no more interesting for them.
Was that the comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to add
And
that
also
what I'm
question.
really, the thing, I'm getting angry a lot of things. This is a very passionate debate for me, but I'm so upset at AI slop destroying cat videos. I'm like, you know, I'm from the old internet and I love cat videos. And now every second cat video on TikTok is freaking AI slop, and I'm so pissed off by it. I'm really upset by it. That's my comment.
It's now. It wasn't supposed to be. It's labor intensive enough to know whether this clip of Trump or this clip of Mertz is an actual clip or is it a parody? Was it a deep fake or made?
It's not even that.
But you're not supposed to have that with cat videos.
There are enough funny cats
Cat
in real
videos
life.
are real.
Show us
I
real
must
cats.
say, I went into the slop universe and sank into Italian brain rot.
Sloppyverse.
It's a very interesting culture. It's
No
really,
disagreement
it really
there.
is. There are figures. They have names.
But
they have relationships.
But this is specifically Italian brain rot, which is what's the generation after Alpha? They're not going to be called Beta, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to agree to be names themselves the Beta generation. Anyways, it's that generation's Marvel universe.
And
for the time
in
being.
a sense, it's wonderful. Really, it really is. The question is still, how do we utilize the tool? I remember that I don't recall where I heard it, but if you hear something and you write it by yourself, you would learn it better than if you will just hear it. So in a sense, a lot of what you said, it's all about, am I using and playing with what AI is giving me, or am I just copying it and pasting it in a different place as an answer? Because if I just copy-paste it, and if I just say, make a funny video of a cat and put it on my social media, it's one thing. And if I try to really create something interesting, it's a whole different thing. And this is this is what differs art from culture in a sense, because art is those cherry-picked moments where we are saying this one is interesting and important for us to look at and think about. And I think Italian brain rot just might be art.
I think your second comment was pretty much on point, because that's really connecting to that. Because what you were referring to is basically the debate about what is culture now and what is art now, right? Is the TikTok video of your sister art now and we old people here just didn't get it? Or, you know, like there's a new debate. I think we didn't come to a conclusion.
I think we need to leave you off to some boredom now. please go outside, stare at the sky, enjoy the weather, do not think about anything, but you don't have to. We're still here if you want to continue on the discussion, but I think cherish the boring little times in the day. They're trying to take them away from us as much as possible. And don't stare at TikTok videos too much. Elad, Anya, Geraldine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Uri.
Thank you, Uri.
Thank you.
And thank you all. Let's do a little